Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and our toll-free number, 800-951-0592, the website at allamericangold.com. And, man, it is already November. I guess it's official. The holiday season upon us. Thanksgiving's coming up, followed by Christmas and, of course, Halloween this weekend. We live in a very low-traffic Halloween area, so we actually weren't planning on having any trick-or-treaters. We actually went over to a friend's house for Sunday dinner, and even there, where they have a lot of houses. Pretty light traffic. A lot of leftover candy. Did not make it to my house, thankfully, because I would have ate it all. But hopefully, you guys had a great Halloween, and now we get ready for Thanksgiving. It's November. We've got a Fed meeting this week. We're going to learn all about taper. Very interesting. Friday, gold falls on hot, whatever you want to call it, inflation. And they're going to have to taper this meeting. And of course, they've been talking about taper for how long now? We know it's coming, not because they want it to come. See, that's the other part that nobody really wants to admit. They actually don't want to taper. Because believe me, if they really did, they would have started this a long time ago. They're being forced into this policy, and today I think gold kind of reflects that. Gold down back 1795, 1796. Silver's back above $24 to the ounce this morning. As we're going to have the meeting, we'll learn on Wednesday. We'll know if they're tapering this month or next month. I don't think it really matters one way or the other. But as I am every day now, I'm joined with my partner Jason up in Colorado. And Jason, really? Does it matter? $15 billion a month. They're hoping, Jason, to be done with bond purchases sometime towards the middle, let's say the back middle of next year.
Well, I don't know if that'll happen or not, Joe. We'll see. If they can get away with continuing to purchase things, they'll do it. So I don't know if they'll taper or not, Joe. Why do I get the feeling they're going to come out like, we are pretty sure that we're going to taper next month? I think that's what they're going to say. Yeah, we're pretty sure next month we're going to do it. And then we'll have to wait another month to see.
That would be interesting. So again, we're split. I think they're going to taper this month because the inflation data keeps getting worse. And I've got a feeling they already know what next month's inflation number is going to be. And I think it's going to be another hot number, so I think it's advantageous. And again, I don't know that it matters. You do bring up a good point now. We never really saw taper before until Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen. They came up with quantitative easing. They came up with the bond buying programs during the financial crisis. Right, again, remember, they call them tools. Oh, we got all these tools. But it's the same tool with a different name. The only tool the Fed has is debt. It's the only tool. So remember the first time they did quantitative easing, the balance sheet went from about $700 billion to $4.5 trillion. Well, I guess it was a little less than that, 4.4, 4.3 trillion, whatever it was. And then Janet Yellen said, look, we fixed everything, and we're going to start tapering. And we're going to bring the balance. Now, the balance sheet wasn't going to go all the way back to $700 billion, right? It wasn't quote-unquote transitory, right? Because it was never going to go all the way back. But they wanted to get the number below $3 trillion, right? And I want to say officially somewhere between 2.5 to 2.8 trillion. That's how many bonds they were going to be holding. Treasury bonds, mortgage-backed securities. They only got to about 3.8 or 3.9 trillion when they had to reverse course. And now the balance sheet is almost 9 trillion. So that's a pretty good trick, really, when you think about it, Jason. Since 2008, they've added $8 trillion to their balance sheet, money that they've created out of thin air, which just ought to tell everybody what the real value of the dollar is.
Yes, I don't think you can lower that number for them to stay in control. So, I mean, I saw this number, Joe, that somebody was presenting that the Fed can come up with a 2% inflation, and that's what they're responsible for. So all of the, let's just say it goes to 7%. Well, the other 5%, that's somebody else's fault. But here's the new Fed number that says we're responsible for 2 of it. The other 5 is something else that we can't control. They might go to that.
You know, that's a really interesting take because, again, I think, and we're hearing it now, right? Oh, well, it's the supply bottleneck. Yeah, that's the problem. We have supply chain issues. Yeah, that's the problem. Oh, wait, you know what? It was COVID. Yeah, that's what we're still dealing with, that issue.
Yep.
As to why inflation is higher than it is. I think that's spot on. I really do. I think you're right. I think they'll say, well, you know, we did our part. All the rest of it, well, that was somebody else's fault. Picture Radio News Hour. Joe Jake with Jason Walker. We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour on this Monday. Man, what a year. 2021 flying by as November has started. We got a Fed meeting this week. We've got the Thanksgiving holiday. You know, is there going to be the great turkey shortage? Not our Christmas tree shortages. I guess that's the new word of the day. Shortages everywhere. How about this, though? This one was caught my eye over the weekend. The United States top coal miners said that they've experienced a massive surge in demand as power companies are restarting coal-fired plants due to the high natural gas prices to try to prevent electricity shortages ahead of winter. And again, you know, and you start thinking about what we're talking about, and I've been telling you, wait till you see what happens to utility bills this winter. I'm not talking 5, 10, 15, 20%. Don't be surprised. I think if 50%, you'll be lucky. A lot of places you're going to see utility bills double. But here's what's really fascinating. The second largest coal miner has sold every lump of coal that it can get out of the ground for all of next year. They sold it all, Jason, at 20% over the current spot price.
That makes sense. And Joe, the coal dependence, I think, is going to grow. I think you're going to see more coal plants and more demand on coal because they're still going to push their agenda of climate change, and that's going to be a lot of electric cars needing coal plants.
Well, that's the thing. We have there's no way we're going to be able to meet the demand. It's actually just idiotic math. It's so basic that. So I did hear Joe Biden, and again, we are going to pay the price for having this week of a leader. You know, and I think sometimes we got to be reminded because you know this is how we ended up with Jimmy Carter, right? This is how we end up with guys like Joe Biden, right? You have, I'll call it the Nixon-Trump effect. And everybody's horrified and upset and this and that, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, wait a minute. Maybe those guys weren't so bad after all. But somebody hopefully is starting to get through to this guy. because he made a comment over the weekend that he now finally admits he's a little concerned that we may not have enough oil if they, with the plan, the plan that they have in place. Listen, I've been saying this forever. They don't want coal. They don't want natural gas. They don't want oil. They've come up with these horrible initiatives where, hey, by 2030, we want 80% of the cars to be electric. By 2035, nothing but electric cars. That is the most idiotic economic policy we've ever seen. And really, truthfully, Jason, wouldn't it make sense? And I mean this in sincerity. If global warming is true, which a lot of us out there just kind of say, listen, go through history, well before humans even roam the earth, right? The earth goes through hot and cold cycles all the time. And they're long-lasting cycles that last hundreds of years. I mean, case in point, we've had a couple of ice ages, right? We've had periods of extreme warmth. But if it was real, there's actually the easy answer. And that would be nuclear. Right? Nuclear power would fix it all. It would produce enough power for the electric cars. It'd produce, at much better than, well, only better for the environment if there isn't a Fukushima. But, right, I mean, it could be solved. But the way they're going about it, it's never going to be solved with wind and solar, Jason.
Nuclear is too efficient, Joe. And believe it or not, I actually see and this is long term, down, maybe a couple of decades. I see us go into these electric cars and moving away from oil just for a certain amount of time. I was watching some stuff, Joe. I think global warming really could be, in fact, a problem because of Iran. Believe it or not, that country, I was watching a whole bunch of stuff. And it seems to me that this little 30-mile strip of water where all the oil has to go through there, I think this is a chink in the globalist armor. I don't think they can control Iran from blocking that. They got mines, they got all kinds of machines to blow away ships. If Iran decided to block that, 80% of the oil that is distributed worldwide would just stop. So
the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah,
what Jason's
the Strait.
To.
Yes. I was looking at this really closely. Man, do I have a feeling that they're building pipelines, they're doing everything they can to isolate themselves from Iran, because that's one of those countries, Joe, that does not have a central bank in league with ours, and they can't do anything about it. And if they go in there blowing the country up, they will take out that strait. They can put these mines, and Iran's much more powerful than I really gave them credit for. They have a problem there, and I think a lot of this global warming stuff has to do with that, Joe. Rockefeller Oil, they want everyone on oil, Joe. So maybe we go into green energy, and then maybe 10 years after that, we go back to oil after Iran's taken out. That might be what we're looking at.
Man, it's just crazy. I'm reading through this coal stuff. Peabody, which is our largest coal producer, they've said they've sold out 90% of all of their production for 2022 and 2023. Alliance, they've only got they ship 32 million tons a year. That's what they can do. They've already sold 30 million tons for next year, so they've only got like 2 million tons left. They've already half sold out for 2023, and I don't know where this extra energy is going to come from. This is a big problem.
Yep.
It's a big problem because natural gas, with where we are at right now, is too expensive. And the problem is we don't have enough. Now we do, but the world doesn't. They don't have enough. Case in point, our natural gas prices here are up 300%. I mean, we look at gasoline. Gasoline I saw is up $1.20 a gallon more this year than last year, which is about 33%. Natural gas is up 300%. Oil we've already talked about Cushing, Oklahoma, approaching the lowest inventory on record in any recent time. And by recent, I'm talking like the last 40 years. That's how low the supply is getting. China, the only other country that I know of that has a strategic oil reserve of any kind, that has any oil in it, they've got the same problem. Their strategic reserve is at a record low. And so now all of a sudden you go back to coal. Right? And coal is, they only fire the coal plants when they need to. Now China and India, that's a different story. But in the United States and Europe, that's the last place they go. Because it was always the most expensive option. Well, now the coal price isn't any more expensive, maybe actually less expensive, at least for now. But the problem is, Jason, there's not that much left, right? The coal mining companies have all shrunk in size, right? They don't, they only can get X amount out of the ground. And what the coal miners are saying is, listen, we're done for 2022. We've sold everything we can possibly get out of the ground. And I'm telling you right now, there's this storm brewing in the energy sector. Yep. That I don't think people see coming. I think somebody finally woke up frickin' Joe Biden from a nap. Because, and I've been saying it for a while, $100, I'm not talking about $100 oil. The case that we're going to see all-time high oil, natural gas, and coal prices, Jason, is becoming more and more likely by the day. And this is just another example of it. This is it. Hey, we're done. We're going to produce the maximum amount we have. Well, then what happens? Right? If you can't fire the natural gas plant and you can't fire the coal plant, you don't have power.
I don't think the usage of energy dramatically went up from 2019 to 2021. I mean, obviously in 2020 there was a shutdown, so you kind of put that out for a minute. If there wasn't a dramatic uptick in energy use, then what is everyone getting ready for? Where is it going, Joe? I think there's a lot of preparations going on. There are definitely a plan in place, and it
is very interesting, isn't it?
Yep.
Because you make a great point. Why now? Now I know. Listen. Nobody's giving money to coal miners. That dried up a long time ago. So I could kind of understand that one. Right? Where the coal miners are like, hey, listen, it's not like this isn't the old days. Right? Where we've got 20, 30,000 unemployed coal miners waiting around for us to go back to work. They're gone. Right? And the money isn't there. Nobody was, hey, let's give Peabody more money to open up a new coal mine. But what's happened over the last 5 years is, despite Donald Trump, remember Donald Trump was pushing against and pushing against and pushing against and saying we need to be energy independent, we need to invest in these oil companies and oil fields and all this and that. The reality is he was the lone voice in the woods, and the money just didn't flow. And we haven't spent enough money, and it's just like we tell the story all the time. A new gold mine, a new silver mine, you're talking almost 10 years to get it online. Now, a new oil field, it may not be 10 years, but it's years. And all the government regulation and all, OSHA this and that and the other, Jason, they just haven't invested.
Right.
Like, Joe, and again, the math was so simple. I don't understand how anybody could have looked at this and said, man, that's a great idea. But yet here we are.
Well, the turning on and turning off of the oil coming, let's just say, from Saudi Arabia has always been kind of an easy trick. So, like I said, maybe something in that trick is very suddenly changed, Joe. That's kind of what I'm seeing. They were shutting down on coal and trying to shut down on oil usage for their global warming stuff. Somebody must have taken advantage.
Somebody did, yes. I wonder. We'll find out eventually who it is, but it's just interesting. I don't know that I've ever read something like that where a major commodity, where companies have said, we've sold out for this year, and we're almost sold out for next year. It's almost, because logic would tell you with booming, right, we should be in there. We should have every miner in the country in there. But the realities are they don't want to put any money into it. And who's they? Well, that's your pension funds, your hedge funds, the bankers, right? They've all been convinced by the extreme left. But I'll tell you right now, I guess it'll make an electric car. Well, I don't even know if that makes it seem affordable because utility prices are going to go through the roof, just the way gasoline's going to go through the roof. 800-951-0592. You know, during the break, I was thinking, what if we had maybe a recession? Maybe that could stem the tide here of what's happening in all of these markets, not just the energy market. I mean, outside of that, Jason, I don't see how we stop this. When you just look at the numbers, even with, we only had 2% GDP third quarter. I mean, we're not blowing off the doors here. We're not doing the numbers that we were doing for the last year now as all this stimulus has stopped. Even at 2%, the problem is going to remain. I mean, we probably have to go into a major recession, Jason, to avert this.
You talk about another coronavirus shutdown?
Maybe.
That would,
right?
that would slow down the energy use.
Something to stop it. I mean, it would have to be significant. We just got the manufacturing data out. Now, this is a October number. Both the service sector and the manufacturing sector, the readings were the lowest we've seen going back at least a year. But it was inside of the numbers there were some really interesting things. Number one, the rate of charge inflation. So in other words, this is our service sector guys, right? So your plumbers, your AC guys, right? Stuff like carpet cleaners, whatever, gold dealers. And then, of course, your manufacturers charging more. It accelerated at the fastest pace on record. So again, tells you inflation is only getting worse, right? Not better, because this number should have started falling by now, and it's not. Matter of fact, they're saying, hey, as of October, it was a record. Then you start going more into detail. U.S. manufacturers said it was another near record lengthening of supply chains, right? Which just simply means, hey, what used to take us 2 weeks now takes 4 or 6 or 8, 10, 12. But there were some other things that were really interesting. They said that shortage of components constraining production. The growth in that number was the lowest since July. So they're like, well, yeah, that's a problem, but it's rising, but it's slowing a little bit. So I would view that as a positive. But half of all companies said that they made less stuff in October. But they went in and said 1 in 10 said we made less because we didn't have enough labor. But this was the one that kind of got me thinking, Jason. 1 in 4 reported that demand had fallen.
Yep. That's right, Joe. I've said it many times. I totally believe that we're in a market crash right now. Think about it. We're trained to think that if there's a market crash, the Dow and the S&P 500 should be going down. We're just trained. That's the way we're trained now with these crashes. So if you're losing control of your own system, the Fed, let's say, and economic numbers are going in the wrong direction, if you can just prop up those two things, people are going to be confused. They don't really understand that it's a market crash. This is a market crash. I mean, my wife went to buy, I said like a week or two ago, some salmon on one of these restaurants she buys. It's like teriyaki thing, and they said, well, we have no salmon. So she checked this weekend. Hey, maybe they got it back in. They said, well, we don't know when we're getting it back in, but we know it's going to be several months out. Which to me means, Joe, I don't think this place is going to be serving salmon anymore. That's what happens in a market crash.
And that's exactly right. And we're seeing this play out all over the place. And here's the other thing. So you've got orders falling. The problem is what they were saying is, yeah, my orders are falling, but the prices I'm paying for the orders that I'm getting keep going up. And that's not a normal market cycle. Usually what happens, well, demand is slowed down, prices fall. Right? Hey, we don't need as much, whatever it is, ketchup or mustard. We don't need as many rivets, or we don't need as much rolled steel, or we don't need as much, whatever it may be. Usually that would all of a sudden mean, okay, well, those prices are going to start to drop. They're not. They're actually going the other way.
That's right. Just think about this, Joe. I was cognizant of the '87 crash and the dot-com bubble and the housing crash. I don't remember not getting salmon or waiting 7 months for furniture during those crashes.
Yeah, this is a new one, and I wasn't old enough, during the '70s to know, but I know this. We had the oil, the oil shortage. Remember that.
Yep.
But a lot of people are saying, hey, we had that. There were similar things like that happening in the '70s as well, Jason.
Absolutely. That's the only thing we can compare it to, because it was the last time that we had a significant inflation cycle. I mean, not just the forced inflation that the Fed has given us for decades, where they take a piece of of us every year. No, this is extreme inflation because of immense market stress, and there's a lot of factors to it. You got a pandemic, you got all of these factors, Joe. And it's telling you, we've been screaming, hollering. Just me and Brian, we joined up in 2018. We've been screaming about it. Joe, I don't even know how you and Eric did it for all the years you did it. You told people, watch out. And this is almost kind of what you guys were actually waiting for. This is what you were actually saying. Hey, it can get really bad. It's sure setting up for really bad stuff, especially by next year. I mean, February.
Part of the problem was how long they got away with it. I think that was the thing that surprised me the most. Right, is how long it took, and it emboldened them to get riskier and riskier and riskier. Now, one of the reasons it took this long is, who would have ever believed that the Federal Reserve would have a balance sheet of $9 trillion? I mean, that's almost half of the economy of the United States. It's mind-blowing to think about. But this is how much debt they created, and they tried to hide it all. And now, guess what? It's all pouring out into the system, and we're just, like Jason said, we're in the middle of a market crash, and we don't even know it. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. Mike Larson from Weiss was out over the weekend and really laying out a case, and I think he's right on here. Jason and I have been telling you, as soon as the taper officially starts, that's when the next rally comes for gold and silver. And Larson is saying he expects, and we'll see. I appreciate his bullishness, But in the next 6 months, all-time highs in both gold and silver. So that would be, I mean, you're talking, gold, we're $300 away from an all-time high. That's a nice move. That's not, a huge move by any stretch of the imagination. But he's calling for in the next 6 months $2,200 to $2,400 gold. But silver, Jason, that would be more than a doubling of the silver price. And again, we've been waiting. We know about supply. There isn't any. Are we finally going to get this move in silver that puts the market? Because quite honestly, the market's not going to find equilibrium again, Jason, until we see it happen.
I think it'll go there, Joe. I think that's a good prediction.
Well, and again, just to point this out, here's what he's saying. We're going to find out very, very quickly in early 2022 that the Fed isn't going to do anything with interest rates because and again, you start looking at this data, the economy's going to be have completely slowed down, and we'll see if they even finish taper, right, Jason?
Joe, to me, I don't even know if they're ever going to taper. I don't know if they can. I think the way that they can taper is when the whole thing crashes. They're going to have a crash before they can taper. That's how I see it. I don't even know how they can taper. They're stuck. So I mean, I keep going to this. If restaurants are running out of salmon, does anyone really think that there's plenty of silver out there for everybody? So yeah, doubling the silver price it seems like an automatic because everything else is going up, Joe. It's going to happen.
I will have some information on silver eagles in the next few days. So right now I don't have anything. I can get it, but what I've got to pay for it, what I've got to charge you for it. But I may have something coming up in the silver markets in the next few days where we can be probably, once again, we'll probably be at or the cheapest price in the country. But I haven't gotten the deal done yet, so I'm working on that. I'll keep you posted when that happens. Right now, $20 gold pieces. We got gold up again here. $20 gold pieces at $2,100 today at 800-951-0592. We had some $10 liberties that we sold last week at $1,035. We pretty much sold out of them, but I got a note from the wholesaler that we were buying them from. He has a few more, so we've got about 15 more $10 liberties, even though gold's up $10, that we can sell at that $1,035 price. So if it's me, I'm buying the $10 pieces first before I'm buying the 20s. 800-951-0592, and then I'll keep you up to date on silver. We may be able to do something pretty aggressively with silver eagles. This was, unfortunately, maybe the last shot at it, Jason, between now and the end of the year, because the mint just keeps saying the same thing. We don't have any extra to sell you. All the silver that we are producing has already been pre-sold. Right,
and then we'll see at what month next year that people can actually get their hands on 2022s, because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be buying ahead on those and making it hard to even get the new. Was it like a month or two in we can usually sell those? I don't know if we're going to be able to do that in a couple of months in. It could be difficult.
Well, that's a great point, because the mint shuts down. We know that they're getting ready to do that sometime in the next, say, 4 weeks. Right, they're going to shut down 4 to 5 weeks, and then they'll be shut all of December, and they start making those 2022 silver eagles. And I think you're right, Jason. I think it's going to be record pre-orders. In other words, everybody and their mother is going to put in record amounts. I think Jason's probably right. There's probably going to be a shortage. It may not be by the time the dealers like us get our hands on them. it could be late January. Normally, usually by the second week of January, they start flowing in. But I wouldn't be surprised. Remember last January, of course, it was, the COVID thing and this and that and the other, but it was well into February, and I think that could play out again.
Yep, you have to be patient for those 2022s because it might take a while, because if some silver hog is buying millions of ounces right on the front end, Joe, it can be hard for them to want to sell it to the small guys when they got the big orders to fill.
Yeah, and that's just that's just the world we live in. We likened it to the Target, Walmart, Kroger, Amazon syndrome, right? They went and bought what was out there, and everybody else could be left holding the bag. So it's gonna be a wild finish in the precious metals markets. And again, if you think the way like Jason and I do, the Fed is in a box here. Jason's like, I'm not even convinced they're going to taper at all. I think they're going to try. They're not tapering because they want to. And I think early in 2022, we're going to realize the Fed's never, ever planning on raising interest rates, at least not in the foreseeable future. And when that happens, just a little money into gold and silver is probably going to send it off to the races. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Gold's up 10, 17.94. Silver's up 10 cents, 24.05. The Dow is mixed. Wall Street is mixed. The Dow's up 30. The S&P's down 1. The Nasdaq's up 50. Crude oil been as high as 84.88 today. Unleaded gas higher again today. So we'll keep watching as this plays out. By the way, U.S. crude, NYMEX crude, has now caught Brent, which is that's what I'll call Saudi Arabia crude or European crude. Usually we're $2-3 less, but due to the storage situation in Oklahoma, Jason, that whole spread has gone away.
Exactly, Joe. I mean, we'll keep on. It'll be like a broken record until inflation actually goes away. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. I mean, I hear you reporting basically record highs on the Dow and the S&P, and it's broken. Does anyone really have any? They really think these markets are that value, that they really are? Hey, I can depend on the markets. Those companies are rock solid, right?
I'm going to tell you right now. The trade deficit number last month, $96.3 billion. That's that's well over $1 trillion a year of wealth leaving the United States. And this number, we've been watching this number over the last 10 or 15 years as we've started printing all of this money out of thin air and all this other stuff. And all of that happened is more and more money leaves the United States, and people don't realize it. They don't realize it. And this is the other hard part of it, Jason, and part of what is happening with us. We're in the middle of a crash, but we don't even see it yet. And the problem is, sooner or later, when we finally wake up, we're going to wake up and realize the country isn't nearly as wealthy as it once was because we gave it all away.
And Joe, we have a visual that goes with that deficit now. Empty containers on ships. That's your visual for a deficit right there. So
California, the geniuses in California, they want to start charging companies. Well, they're actually going to charge the shippers $100 a container for every container that's at the port longer than 9 days. Primarily those containers belong to Walmart and Amazon and Costco and Kroger. And they said, hey, California, okay, do you really want us to do this? Do you really want us to go? Because if we do, there's not going to be a single truck and a chassis left to get any of the other containers out. And you're actually all we're going to do is we're going to make those ships stay out to sea even longer. And I think this is exactly what we're going to see, Jason.
Another small business
these
crush.
Solutions, these guys, they have no idea. They come up with these ideas. They have no idea what's really happening in the real world.
I don't know, Joe. That $100 per container, that's something Walmart can handle, but smaller trucking companies, probably it's a little more expense for them. It sounds like another small business crush situation.
Well, what it's going to do is lead to higher prices because they're actually going to charge the shippers. The shippers go back and pass it along, and all that's going to do is going to make the cost of everything
go up,
even more expensive. I mean, you hit it right on the head. Walmart, Amazon, they'll absorb it. It's going to be the little guys that, again, can't do it. Patriot Radio News Hour. God bless everybody.